After midnight hammer, they were warned to make no future attempts to rebuild their weapons program, and in particular, nuclear weapons. Yet they continue, starting it all over. We are in negotiations with them. They want to make a deal, but we haven't heard those secret words. We will never have a nuclear weapon. My preference is to solve this problem through diplomacy. But one thing is certain, I will never allow the world's #1 sponsor of terror, which they are by far, to have a nuclear weapon. Can't let that happen. And no nation should ever doubt America's resolve.
President Trump there addressing Iran's nuclear threat at the State of the Union speech this week. Nuclear talks are underway right now in Geneva. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff leading the American delegation. President Trump still considering military action as the U.S. builds up its assets in the region. The Treasury hit Iran with new sanctions last night, targeting individuals, companies, and ships accused of enabling the country's oil sales and ballistic missile capabilities. Joining me right now is the leader of the Iranian Democrat opposition, the former Crown Prince of Iran, Reza Pahlavi. Your Royal Highness, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Good to see you. Let me kick it off right there and get your take on the sanctions that were put in place last night. Are the sanctions working against the Iranian regime?
Good morning, Maria. As we have often discussed this matter with you, one of the elements that brings more pressure on the regime are indeed anything that will make them less capable of having revenue that funds their war machine or their repressive apparatus or whatever they've done throughout decades of funding their proxies and fomenting radicalism and terrorism in the region. Clearly, the regime that is on its last leg and about to collapse would be even more challenged as a result of economic sanctions, and it would precipitate its downfall, which is exactly what we hope happens as a nation that is ready to revolt and liberate itself from this occupying force.
So you think then that putting these sanctions is just applying more pressure and it's a positive?
It is a positive, as you recall many times the discussion that I have brought to the table in terms of how the world can be of help to the Iranian people who want to liberate themselves from this regime. One is a campaign of maximum support for the people, parallel to maximum pressure on the regime. Now, the combination of these two external factors will lead to an element that is very critical for the transition, which is maximum defections from the regime elements to the people. This is part of our scenario of change and transition because it will minimize resistance. It will stabilize the country sooner rather than later. It will offer a scenario of an exit strategy for people who want out of this regime and don't want to sink with this sinking ship. And this will therefore make our job easier post-regime collapse to manage the transition. I'm talking specifically about the military and paramilitary forces as well as the civil bureaucracy, so we don't have a repeat of post-Saddam Hussein de-Baathification, which is very much on our mind.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that because I want to get your take on how Iran is getting support. I mean, is it China? But let me stay here for a moment on the domestic issues because you are also launching a special project to encourage economic prosperity for a free Iran. Now, whether or not we get a free Iran anytime soon is another question. But of course, the economic benefits of the free Iran are deep and long. Tell us about your vision for the economy once perhaps that could occur.
Well, the Iran Prosperity Project is a very a complex plan that covers several phases for Iran's redevelopment coming back on track. The first phase is focused on the immediate. What do we need to do in the first 100 days post-regime collapse? But from a point of view of the average American standing out there looking at a different picture of a different Iran and what it would mean to U.S. interests beyond national security in terms of economic opportunities. Look, we anticipate that as a result of a fundamental change in Iran, this would probably represent an over $1 trillion worth of revenue to the American market in the span of the first 10, 15 years, should things change. There are a variety of firms that would benefit from being back into the fold as far as Iran's market being open to the U.S., which was shut off completely for almost half a century since this regime took over. And there are a lot of Iranian Americans that are representative of various companies from Silicon Valley to other places who are willing to immediately step in and invest billions of dollars into the Iranian economy. And all of that will bring about a very prosperous future for the Iranian people, but also, I think, in the best interest of America. Now, we have a regime, as you pointed in the first sentence that you mentioned about China and the fact that it chooses to partner with China. Yeah. The Iranian people would partner with America because we realize that the geopolitical significance of the Chinese Communist Party gaining more foothold in the region, and that's not in the best interest of Iran or, for that matter, the free world, especially the United States. So the whole point is, who do you choose to invest on? Are you going to continue hoping for a change of behavior by this regime that could never be trusted, and the negotiations, I don't think, will lead to any point, rather than say the Iranian people are our true allies and partners? That should be the horse we bet on from now on.
Understood. And you're talking about, visions of what, $1 trillion in revenue for American companies over a decade, replacing Iran's aging aviation fleet and modernizing the energy sector, opening up a market of 90 million educated consumers. It sounds wonderful. But the reality of the situation today is that President Trump just noted that Iran is killing protesters. And he mentioned it in the State of the Union the other night that Iran leadership has killed a reported 32,000 people just in the last couple of weeks in the recent anti-regime protests. Tehran is pushing back. They're accusing the president of, quote, big lies over the number of deaths and Iran's nuclear program. But we've got videos, and these videos show another crackdown on Iranian student protesters, police flooding schools to crush a fourth day of anti-regime demonstrations. What are you hearing in terms of the activity on the ground? We've got these videos of pickup trucks with machine guns photographed outside the University of Tehran. I mean, is there actual, regular happenings at universities? What can you tell us about colleges and whether or not they're actually even enabling people to get educated there at this moment in time? The word is that there are virtual classes, if any, to avoid any protests.
Well, Maria, across the board, the Iranians are unified today more than ever in understanding how pivotal, how critical it is for this regime to no longer be in place, because that will address every concern that the Iranian society has faced for more than 4 decades, and of course the impact this regime has had as a means of its continued survival to the region and the world. I'm glad that you're showing these images, because unfortunately mainstream media has had very little coverage of what has happened in Iran. But as you know, in the world of social media in which we live, these kind of footages come to us every single day from various parts of the country, and the writing is on the wall. When you hear the Iranian people, what they say and how distant the regime is from their aspiration, it goes without saying. Now, President Trump, I'm sure, has a tremendous amount of information and data and intelligence reports that comes to him. I'm sure he's very well aware of the situation on the grounds in Iran. Yeah. We all understand that he had to exhaust every avenue of diplomacy as a last resort, the regime to come back. But as I told you, I doubt that this regime will ever come clean. It has always been disingenuous and dishonest. It's just trying to buy time, riding the storm until President Trump is no longer in office, which is typically the way they behave. Yeah. That's why we keep saying this regime is not to be trusted. Instead, be assured that once Iran is liberated, Iran will be committed to make sure that the world is comfortable and confident of our intentions, our transparency, our dedication to reverse this process that the regime has done, put an end to extremism, radicalism, terrorism, dubious nuclear program, dismantle a military military program, be transparent versus IAEA. I mean, the whole difference is the Iranian people are committed to that. I'm here to as their voice to you and tell President Trump and everybody else in the free world that, look, your best bet is to trust the Iranian people and not trust anymore this regime. I think everybody knows that. I think Geneva will pan out pretty soon, and then we'll see what happens.
Well, look, I understand all that you're saying. There's also pushback on you. There's certain pockets of people who say, look, the Iranian people don't want to return to a monarchy. You know, they're saying, we don't know. I mean, you have been the face of this pushback on this brutal regime, no doubt about it. But, you know, what do you want to say to those people who perhaps are questioning? I know you've talked repeatedly about a transition. And also, Your Highness, if you will, address the China end of this, because we're zeroing in on communist China. And Iran reportedly close to a deal with China to buy supersonic anti-ship missiles. These are Chinese-made missiles. They've got a range of nearly 200 miles, and they're designed to avoid ship defenses by flying fast and low. The missiles would significantly boost Iran's firepower and striking capabilities, especially against U.S. forces building in the region. And we're also worried that China is giving Iran information in terms of where specifically U.S. assets are. So you've got all of that coming at you.
Well, reason more, Maria, to just push the regime over the cliff because it's on its way down and not throw it yet again another lifeline. This has been on arguments for decades, but this is a moment in time where the circumstances are the most favorable for this to happen. It's not just the relationship that Iran is now trying to establish with China. I mean, they've done it with North Korea. They're supplying drones to the Russians in their conflict with the Ukraine. I mean, every way you look at it, this regime has always been up to no good as it relates to stability in the region and elsewhere. So another reason why the best solution to put an end to all these concerns is for this regime to no longer be there. But let me go to the first question you asked about the transition and my role and how do I see the future. This is not about monarchy or republic. It's about secular democracy. And in fact, I've always offered to lead the transition in the context of allowing free and fair elections to determine the future of Iran. The Iranian people, we have multiple opportunities to weigh in on the subject, hear the debates in a Constitutional Assembly that would propose what the ultimate form could be, and it's all going to be by means of direct vote by the people in ratifying the propositions and in a referendum. At the end of this process, once the Iranian people have decided the future form of their governance in terms of a secular democratic system, it could be a parliamentary monarchy, it could be a republic. Republics may have different forms. All of this needs to be debated. And at the very end, once the project is ratified by referendum, there will be the elections of the first parliament of this new democracy and the first government of this new democracy, at which point the transitional government would dissolve itself and hand over power to the elected representative of the people. And that's the end of this process of transition that at this point I've stepped in to lead. With the help of Iranian that are representative of different viewpoints, by the way. I'm not supported just by monarchies. I have Republicans, people on the left, right, center, ethnic groups, religious groups, and what have you. It's a very diverse.
We've seen the videos, sir, and we've seen even in the Munich Security Conference people chanting your name. We understand that. Your Highness, always a pleasure. Thanks very much for joining us, and we will, of course, keep a watch on the potential, the economic potential that you are bringing to light this morning, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
All right. Prince Reza Pahlavi. We'll be right back. Stay with us.